and welcome to the first proper episode of the Music Baby podcast. My name is Delphine. I am the OG Music Baby, and I'm here, and this podcast is here to build a community of like-minded DIY musicians, independent artists, musicians in general, music lovers, anything to do with music and art that is slightly independent. And we want to build a community with everybody who considers themselves part of that group, considers themselves a music baby. And we want to come together in this community and talk about the struggles, talk about the benefits of being unsigned and independent. And yeah, just talk about our craft, to be honest. That's kind of what it is. We are interviewing a lot of great artists, a lot of great industry professionals who might have some great advice for us struggling little music babies. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a lot of great conversations with myself, where I talk about topics that interest me, conversations with guests where we talk about what they're up to. And then this podcast, the Music Baby podcast, is in collaboration with the Music Dad podcast. So every now and then you'll get a episode which we like to call the family catch up. And that's myself and Nico from Stupid Hearts Club / the Music Dad podcast coming together in an episode and catching up on everything we've been up to. Because Nico's also interviewing people. He's also talking about music and all kinds of things he's interested in. And then every now and then we just catch up. We just exchange our experiences. As you might have seen, I have recapped the Great Escape weekend that has happened in May of 2024 here in the very cloudy and windy Brighton. I like to call it sunny Brighton, but let's be real, it's not sunny most of the time. It's windy most of the time. And yeah, there was a conference here where a lot of industry professionals, a lot of music companies came to Brighton to hold talks and seminars and masterclasses all about independence in the music business. So kind of the perfect conference for this podcast. So of course I went to some of the masterclasses, some of the seminars. I filmed a lot of it. I wrote down a lot of it. And I did a little recap video that was split in 2 parts, as you might have seen on this channel. That was kind of like a little soft launch of this podcast. And now this is the real thing. This is the first episode of the Music Baby podcast, and I'm really excited. Now, because I'll be your host for pretty much every episode, whether we have a guest on or a music industry professional, or whether it's just an episode where I talk about a topic that I've researched, that I'm really interested in, you'll always see my face in the episodes, or you'll always hear my voice in the episodes. So I thought this first episode would be a good opportunity for you to get to know me, get to know the themes of the podcast. Maybe I'll tease a little bit of the upcoming episodes that we have. And yeah, just so you know what you can expect from this. I also wanted to get straight into it and talk about a topic that I'm interested in. And it ties in very nicely with the Great Escape conference recaps that I've done, because one of the seminars was about building your personal brand. And they have talked about this technique or this way of thinking that's called Ikigai. And it's a Japanese practice or a way of thinking that goes like this. They basically describe it as a reason of being, and how you do it or how you use that practice on yourself is you figure out what you love, first of all. So this could be music, for example. This could be the ocean for me. This could be mermaid lore for me. Anything you love, anything that interests you. So next, if we go clockwise, we need to figure out what the world needs. So I think the world needs certain magic. Sometimes the world needs distraction. Sometimes the world needs the truth. There's a lot of things that, in my opinion, the world needs. I think that will be quite a long one to jot everything down to figure out, what the world needs, because I think it's quite a big question. But I think it's meant to be quite personally. So like, what do you think the world needs, or what does your world maybe need, like the world you live in, so like your community, or your country, or the world that you're trying to live in, so the music world, for example. So I think it's quite a broad question, but I think it's best to just interpret it for yourself. Then we have to think about what you can be paid for. So what's something that you can do that has value? So monetary value. What can you bring to the table that people would actually pay for? And then lastly, we have what you are good at. So that could be talents that you've had since birth. That could be skills that you've developed that you realize you're quite good at. Or maybe it's something that your friends have told you about, that they admire about you, that they think you're good at. So that's quite a broad one as well. So once you've figured these 4 things out for you, you can determine your mission, your vocation, your profession, and your passion from those. And I think it's quite interesting because when those things come together and you start thinking about the things that you love, the things that the world needs, the things that you can get paid for, and the things that you're good at in context with each other, you come up with maybe something you haven't thought about before. So figuring out your passion, because I could just say my passion is music, but what is it more specifically? Especially also when you put it in context of the question, what is your brand? Or what do you stand for as an artist? So I think this could be a really fun and useful exercise for anyone who hasn't quite figured out their brand yet and would like to just get their artist persona down on paper. So I thought, because I want this episode to be about you getting to know me, you getting to know the podcast, what is this about, what can you expect from future episodes, I will determine my Ikigai. I'll go through all the steps for my artist brand, for my personal brand. I mean, it's kind of mixed because the artist might have like a certain image, but the person behind the artist is the one with the passion and the one who thinks about what the world needs and everything. So the artist and the person behind the art kind of come together here, but that only gives it so much more depth, as well as authenticity, which is something that the music industry professionals have talked about all the time at the Great Escape conference. That's why we'll do this exercise today, or I'll do this exercise today. If you want, you can follow along as a listener or as a watcher. I think it could be cool. But before we get into that, I want to explain the details of this podcast a little bit further so that you know what to expect in the upcoming episodes. So first of all, you can find the Music Baby podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, where we'll have a video format type podcast. So if you're more of a visual type, then I recommend you checking that out. You will see my lovely face there every week, and some cool guests as well. You'll get to see them perform live in video form. Obviously, if you are the kind of person who listens to the podcast while doing something else, like me, then you might prefer the audio version, which you can find wherever they have podcasts. We're also on social media, of course. This is always important to note. We're on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter as Music Baby Pod. And on there, you can just find updates. You can find reviews. I love to review new singles, new EPs or albums, or even live shows. So I've started reviewing some things that independent artists have released. I want to put an emphasis on only reviewing independent artists, lesser known artists. I don't want to call them small artists because that kind of diminishes them, but they're very independent, they're unsigned, and they are music babies just like I am. You'll also be able to find little clips of the episodes on there, so if you haven't seen an episode yet but you want a little teaser, that's where you will find that. So now, what can you expect in the upcoming episodes? The next episodes will feature some guests, people who I've just seen live, and I've seen their stuff and I got really interested in their music and what they do and how they write their songs. One of them is a very cheeky songwriter who just likes to tell from their own life, and it's it sounds so honest and cheeky, and sometimes I'm like, oh my god, I wonder who that song is about, and it gets me really interested in just like the background of the artist, and that's why I interviewed them. After all, they also played a few songs which you'll be able to hear in next week's episode. I'm really excited. We also have Meg, who is the co-founder of Southlane Studios. Southlane Studios is our sponsor for this batch of episodes. You'll be able to see that we filmed the next few episodes in their amazing practice rooms, in their recording rooms. So we kind of tested the facilities a little bit with the podcast. And yeah, so they let us use those rooms. And it was so nice to record a band in a proper rehearsal space, to record a solo musician as well in a really nice studio setup. And it made everything so beautiful, both aesthetically, and the audio sounds so nice as well, just because obviously the rooms are soundproofed. So it was a real blessing to have them work with us on these episodes. And we have Meg from Southlane Studios in one of the episodes as well, where I'll be interviewing her about her business a little bit, but also about artist development, what it means to be independent, how to be authentic, and how to do it well. We talk about social media a little bit, and how people who don't like social media might use it. So it's a whole big episode of really useful advice. Okay, now a little bit more about me. Like I said, my name is Delphine. I'm the OG music baby. I studied songwriting, both a bachelor and a master at BIM in Brighton and BIM in London. So I learned as much as I possibly could in a uni context about songwriting. Obviously, you never stop learning. Every time I listen to a new song, I learn something new. And I host open mic nights in Brighton, and I sometimes put on bigger scale gigs for other people, for other bands, and it just gets me in contact with so many amazing musicians that are on the same level as me, who are maybe doing better than me, or who have just started out. So I kind of hear stories from every step of the music evolution that you go through as an artist, and it's really interesting. And I just wanted to do something with all the stories that I hear, and all the amazing opportunities that I get to be in. And that's how this podcast came to be. I want to put a focus on the independent part of being a musician, what that means, what the struggles are, but also why it's so incredibly fun to do this. Now, of course, being a music baby, I also do music myself. I have a bunch of original songs out. I love to sing whimsical covers at the open mic nights, but also my originals, just to test them out in front of an audience. And I'm working on bigger projects at the moment. In fact, this Saturday the 22nd of June, I'll be performing in Camden at the Dingwalls Canal Bar in London, of course. And if you want to get to know me, if you want to talk to me about the podcast, or if you just want to see me play, you're all very cordially invited to that. I'm really excited to play that one. I've heard from a few people now that this venue is absolutely beautiful. It's by the water. It's in Camden, which is obviously quite a cool area of London, and I'm gonna test out some new songs and some new equipment as well. That's always really exciting, having a new piece of gear. Okay, now I want to get into the topic of this episode, which is Ikigai, a reason for being, or in our world, a reason for being a musician. So figuring out what drives me as a musician. In order to figure out my personal Ikigai, I'm going to go through all the steps. I'm going to start with what I love and work my way clockwise around the diagram. And then we can figure out the middle bits. So the passion, the mission, the vocation, and the profession. So let's start with what you love, or what I love. You can follow along while I do this exercise, but obviously put down your own answers, not the ones that I give. So I love to sing. I love to sing live. I love to sing live and capture people. When people are really I was going to say trapped in the song, but I meant when people are really mesmerized by the song, that's when I really feel love for them, for my songs, for myself, for the world, I think. Because it's a magical moment that is really hard to explain. I think things that are really hard to explain with facts and science border on magic. I don't know if that sounds silly, but I think that's how you can best explain magic, something that's hard to explain. But yeah, it is that being on stage and singing a song that you wrote all by yourself, not knowing if anybody would even be into it, and seeing the audience being absolutely captivated by it, captivated by the words you say, by the sounds you make, by the notes you sing, or maybe you play an instrument that sounds beautiful and you found the perfect chord for it, or you found the perfect melody for it, and the audience feels the same and they can't stop listening and they can't stop watching you. It's always clear to me that I've reached that when the audience doesn't talk to each other, because normally they will make little comments like, oh, that sounded so nice, or that sounded so bad. Obviously you get both, but when you don't see that, when you don't see people talk to each other, that's when I think you've reached that captivating magic that you want to get when you're playing on stage. Now, I don't want this to come across pretentious, but that's just how I feel. I've always loved art. Before I fully got into music and before I decided that's what I wanted to do with my life, I was really into drawing and painting, anything that had to do with a paintbrush, anything that had to do with a sculpture. And I was always really good at it in school as well. So that was my favorite subject. I loved art, never skipped it. Any project that we did, anything with textiles, anything with lino printing, it was all something I loved. So I will put down that I love art. I don't even mean this in I'm an art critic. I understand art, because I don't. I don't understand art. What I love is making art. I think just the action of making something. I love making my little merch bracelets. I love making paintings. I love taking photos even, or videos. I think it's such a fun and fulfilling, weirdly, thing to do, because you look at the end product and you're just endlessly proud of yourself. So I love making art. I'm gonna try and put 3 items for each, because I think you could just go on endlessly. I'm finding it quite difficult to come up with a third one, because I find this whole section surprisingly difficult. So I think the third thing I'll put will be a little bit broad, but I'll put little keywords around it. So I love magical moments, or I love magic. And what I mean by that, magical moments, the moment of songwriting, for example, or the moment of making art, it's not just about the art, it's about the moment of creating it. And I think it has something magical about it. Then the moment of performing it also has something magical about it. Then, and let's go away from making music and my job. For example, I love the ocean. I love to swim. I love to dive. Anything in the water. I'm a very water is my favorite element, I guess. But can you have a favorite element? That is a weird thing to say. It's just one of my favorite things to do. I have swimming as a hobby. I have swimming as whenever I plan a holiday, it should kind of include going swimming somewhere. I grew up around water. I grew up loving all the mermaid shows and acting them out with my friends, and it's just a huge part of what I like that's not music, and I think that's magical as well. Diving, kind of magical. Humans are not really meant to be underwater, at least not for very long. So diving and trying to go very deep and trying to see different animals and different plants that grow underwater and trying to stay down there for as long as possible is kind of magical, because we're not really supposed to do that. But the fact that we can, and just seeing underwater, it's beautiful. It's a magical feeling, if anything. I think there's something magical about other things in nature as well. So I think plants themselves are kind of cool. The way they live and the way they grow and how many different species they are and the way they look. Like, some of them look crazy. Forests, rainforests, space, the desert, any nature related thing or ecosystem. Now, I know these are the most normal things one could ever list, like the ocean and the forest and the desert, because it's just stuff that exists and has existed before us and maybe will exist after us. We'll see how it goes for this planet. But there's something so magical about it, where there's so much that we can't explain about it. So there's a lot of stuff about the ocean that's still unexplained. I think the rainforest is probably one of the most complicated ecosystems, but it just works together. The desert, very extreme ecosystem, but also full of mysteries. And then space, probably the biggest mystery of all. So that's what I mean when I say I love magic and magical moments. So I listed 2 that have to do with music and 1 that doesn't. Now, the next one is what the world needs. And I find this one a little difficult to interpret, because obviously the world needs peace. The world needs compassion. I think I might relate it back to myself a little bit. So maybe something that I can give the world that I also think it needs. So compassion, for example. I can't give the world peace because I don't have that power. But compassion in every person can lead to more peace. What the world needs is listening to each other, listening to the people who do speak on issues, giving them the time and giving them the space to talk freely and to talk honestly and really listen. And then the last thing, when already talking about nature, talking about the rainforest, talking about the oceans, the world needs to return to nature, I think. I think advances in technology and new developments are great. Of course, for a lot of businesses, it helped a lot that, like, for example, phones were invented, all the technology that we work with now, AI is helping a lot of industries. Of course, also harming a lot of industries, taking jobs away. But yeah, so I don't even want to demonize technology in any way. I think it was useful in a lot of places. But I think it's good to remember that we are part of nature. We're part of the animal kingdom, I guess. We are in tune with the planet, or at least we should be. But I do think our shortened attention spans, for example, and us spending so much time on our phones, which is fine. That's everybody's prerogative. You can do whatever you want in your life. You can be on your phone 24/7 and it's fine. That's what you can do. But I think it's important to remember that that's not the real world. When I'm on my phone all day, I get really stressed and anxious at the end of the day. When I'm on the beach all day, maybe also being productive in some way, writing a song in my little notebook, I come home incredibly relaxed and incredibly in tune with myself and my soul and my brain. And I think everything's perfect. And when I'm on my phone all day, I get stressed. I think about everything I don't have. I think about all the money that I need that I don't have. Or what happens to the country, what happens to politics. It's just, I don't know. It's like, I also enjoy social media. I really do. I'm not one of those people who say that all social media is the devil. It's not. It's incredibly helpful. It's a great tool, especially if you have your business in social media. But it's also it's really important to just remember that that's not the real world and it's just a tool. It's not your life, it's a tool. So I'm going to say third thing the world needs is mindfulness and return to nature. And by returning to nature, I think we return to ourselves. Now, a little bit more professional, a little bit less hippy-dippy. Let's get into what you can be paid for. I can be paid for entertainment. So I think that includes singing, because I have so much education in singing now. I can really rely on my voice. I can very safely accept any kind of like cover gig or original gig. And I know that I'm going to deliver a good performance when it comes to my voice. So that's something I can be paid for. I can play gigs. And I think it's fair. I do think I put on a good show when somebody pays me for a gig. So that's what I can be paid for. Then songwriting. I'm not entirely sure how to put this because I have so much education in songwriting. I have 2 degrees in songwriting. One of them is a master. And I'm still really insecure sometimes about my songwriting because it's so incredibly subjective. Like the singing, for example, kind of objective because you hit the notes, you sound good, you put some feeling in your voice, the songs are good, you have a good dynamic range, and obviously you're a good singer. Like there's certain points that you need to hit to be a good singer. But for songwriting, because it's so subjective, it's really hard to say you're a good songwriter, you're a bad songwriter. So I think I could be paid for it. I can, but I struggle more with like selling my worth. But yeah, it's a profession that it's like something I can be paid for. The last thing, kind of weird, but I'm pretty confident that I'm good at this. I think confidence is so important though. When you're self-employed, you really have to be confident about the things you're selling. And I am confident about this. I think I'm good with tech. So like music tech, not like computer tech. I'm not good with that at all. I understand mixing. I understand a little bit of mastering. I understand music production. I understand live music production. So because I'm hosting open mic nights and I'm putting on gigs, I do the sound. I know what microphone needs what. I know which guitar needs what. I know where everything is on a desk. So I think I could get paid for that. But I am putting it third because I think the other 2, I'm more confident about it because that's what I learned. Music production, I just kind of learned as I was learning songwriting because it's close together, those 2. But I would say there's probably people out there who are better than me at music production. But then I guess you could say that about everything else as well. But yeah, I think I could be paid for music production if somebody wanted to. Now, the last one is, what are you good at? And I think I've talked about it with the other ones a little bit already. I think I'm really good at singing. And I don't want to sound braggy about this. I'm not, I don't like to brag about things at least, but the singing is just like, I think I'm just I'm confident about it just because I had so much education. I had a lot of feedback, a lot of negative feedback in the beginning every now and then, but I think because it's mostly positive, I know I can hit the notes, I know I can do harmonies, like I'm very secure in my singing, so I'm going to put that down. I'm good at singing. I think you can say that without being braggy, like admit the things that you're good at. I think a lot of people, especially musicians, we sometimes feel like we have to undermine ourselves so that we don't come across braggy, but I think it's fine to admit the things that you know you're good at, because otherwise, how are you going to get people to believe in you? Like, how are you going to get people to come to your gig if you're like, oh, but I'm not that good yet? Like, yeah, I guess I'm trying to write songs. I guess they're okay. Like, no, I'm a good songwriter. I'm a good singer. And that's why you should come to my gig. So, yeah, I think we should normalize admitting that we're good at things. Because, my God, the simplest thing, the easiest thing. Now, here's a non-music one. I think I'm good at having difficult conversations with people. I think I'm very diplomatic when it comes to fighting, when it comes to disagreements or any difficult piece of conversation you might have with somebody. I think I'm a little bit too diplomatic sometimes, but I am good at talking about difficult things because I find it challenging, but like in a good way, because I like to not just always have boring conversations. Like conversations are one of the things that I'd rather them be difficult, honestly, because otherwise, like I hate small talk. I can't with small talk. And the last thing I'm good at, I think I have a lot of empathy. I can, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times I can tell how somebody's feeling by looking at them, the way they talk, the way they move. I can tell when somebody's feeling stressed or somebody's feeling anxious, and I think I'm good at then trying to empathize with them. Empathize. And then I think I'm good at empathizing with them, helping them, listening to them, like depending on what's going on. I think I am good at just being able to tell what's going on and then feeling for that. Okay, so now let's figure out my mission. So what I love is singing, art, magical moment. What the world needs is compassion, listening, mindfulness, return to nature. So my mission is to show compassion through my art and through my singing. Or my mission is to listen to my audience, maybe with this podcast. Maybe the people who come on the podcast, my mission is to listen to them, listen to their stories, show compassion to whatever they're going through, or show compassion to every way of life that has to do with music, like all the music babies, of course. Like, to be honest, that's kind of what this podcast is for. It's for helping and being there for all the people who are going through the same thing and maybe just want somebody that listens to them and maybe like talks too. I mean, I'm not really doing much listening by talking on a podcast, but if you feel like you are being heard by me saying the thing that you're thinking, then maybe that counts. And in a music sense as well, like if I write a song about a topic that somebody feels like no one else really understands them, no one else understands what they're going through, but then the song understands, you kind of feel heard with that by not even having to say anything. So I guess that counts. And then by emphasizing magical moments, so what I was saying about the ocean, the forest and nature, I can remind the world to return to nature and be more mindful. Oh my god, it's actually working. I can't believe that. This actually makes sense. So now let's figure out my vocation. So vocation is what the world needs in combination with what you can be paid for. So we just said what the world needs: compassion, listening, mindfulness, return to nature. What I can be paid for: entertainment, songwriting, music production. So I think this is kind of the same as what I had before. So I think my vocation might be the same as my mission, because through entertainment, through gigs that I get paid for, I can make people feel heard. Through my songwriting, I can put a message out there to remind people to be more mindful, to remind people to return to nature. And I guess the music production doesn't really fit in with things, but it's just kind of part of the songwriting, I guess. It kind of ties in a little bit, but on its own, I don't think it really works with what I put before, but still, it kind of makes sense. So I think my vocation is very similar to my mission. Now let's look at profession. Oh my god, I wonder what that will be. So the profession is what you can be paid for in combination with what you are good at. So I can be paid for entertainment, songwriting, music production, and I'm good at singing, handling difficult communication, and empathy. Okay, so it's obviously a singer. I'm working late 'cause I'm a singer. I think it's just straight up singer, songwriter, performer. I think that's just what I can get from this in terms of profession. But yeah, obviously, I mean, what else would it be? Now, the last thing we're figuring out is my passion. And the passion is what you're good at in combination with what you love. And I think those are almost the same. So singing are the same. So obviously my passion is singing. Handling difficult communication or handling conflict. Art, magical moments. Empathy, art, magical moments. Putting empathy in art, putting magical moments in empathy. I think the handling difficult communication thing is kind of a bit out of the... It doesn't really make sense. I should have probably put something else, but I just wanted to put that in there to, I don't know, just so you can get to know me a little bit better. But it doesn't really make sense with anything else on this list. So my passion is singing. My passion is art. And my passion is magical moments. I don't know. I think that's good enough. So this is my Ikigai. I think the main themes that we have are singing, being confident about singing, magic in nature, magic in art, magic in empathy, magic in myself, in like the quiet moments, and magic on stage with other people, like the magic in a connection that's being built through a song that you have written out of magic as well. So I think those are important points for me in my Ikigai. And I think this is a really cool exercise. It makes you think about the things that you think are obvious. So like, oh, I'm a singer, I'm empathetic, I'm a songwriter, I do production, blah, blah, blah. I think the world needs this. But just thinking about it more and putting it in context with other aspects of your life and other aspects of your career and your personality and who you want to be as a person maybe as well. So I thought this was cool. I think you should definitely try it out for yourself. I'll make a little template that you can download. I'll leave a link to that in the show notes and in the description actually. So then you can see everything that I've talked about today. Maybe I'll leave an article or two on Ikigai with some directions on how to do it properly. I just kind of did it the way I wanted to do it, because I also wanted to talk a little bit about who I am as a person. So it wasn't purely just for me to figure out my personal brand. It was to 50% figure out my personal brand, but also 50% tell you who I am as a person and what this podcast is about. It's about helping each other. It's about building a community and having that little magical connection that musicians have with each other, but also musicians have with the audience and audiences have with musicians or with each other. Definitely let me know if you've done this Ikigai exercise for yourself and what you came up with, because I think these are going to be very different from one another. I think each person's Ikigai is going to be unique because there are so many aspects that you have to put together. So even if some might be similar, there's still going to be differences in each one. And yeah, let me know how yours came out and what was your theme that you didn't expect so much. I think mine was the whole magic thing, that's such a big thing for me, and that I found it in the other aspects as well, like the nature and the performance and the ocean and everything. So I thought that was quite interesting to see that that's such a big thing in my mind. And thank you for listening to this first episode of the Music Baby podcast. I had so much fun. I really did. I really like these episodes where I just sit down and I just talk about something that I find really interesting. Some of the episodes that are more sit down are going to be a bit more research because I want to talk about issues like streaming. Is streaming ruining the way we consume music, the way we think about music? Songwriting inspirations. What are good inspirations for writing a song? What are good tools for writing a song? So obviously, since I studied songwriting for a bachelor and a master, I've come across a lot of tools for songwriting and how one should write a song. So I'll be able to like tell you about all of them and review them and research them. This one was very casual, very much just like me telling you who I am, but there'll be a lot more researched, a lot more I guess credible episodes coming out on more professional topics and music industry topics, because that's what I love. Again, I thank you for listening to this episode, for showing interest in the podcast. I promise you we have a lot of really good episodes coming up. The calendar is filled to the brim with great episodes that are already done, that are coming out soon. And I'm really excited to finally show you all the episodes. If you're interested in working with us, if you want to be on an episode, if you're an artist, if you're an industry professional, if you're a brand that wants to work with us, then feel free to reach out. We're happy to have a chat with you about anything. Maybe you just want to talk about music with us. That's absolutely fine as well. I love to talk about microphones if you're looking for a nerdy topic that we can nerd out together. So microphones and plugins is my guilty pleasure. So message me about anything relating that. I'll see you next week. Oh my God, for the first guest episode of the Music Baby podcast. It'll be really, really exciting. And I really love the person who we'll have on first, because they were just so cool. Like, to talk to them, we were in such a flow and the conversation just happened naturally. We kind of forgot that the microphones were on and the camera was there. So I'm really excited to present you the first guest. I won't tell you who it is now, but if you look in our Insta, you might be able to get a little glimpse. I had so much fun today. I hope you did too. I really enjoyed this little exercise. I think it was a really cute way of kicking off the podcast. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Thursday.